The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Welcome to the bonus show. Big hubbub over at Fox News over Judge Jeanine Pirro's show. Judge Jeanine made some comments that even Fox News agreed were Islamophobic. They were about Muslim Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, and Fox yanked the program off the air over the weekend. And now there are questions as to whether the program will ever be back, whether Judge Jeanine will be back. Donald Trump is now involved, lobbying for the reinstatement of Judge Jeanine's show. Trump is one of Jeanine Pirro's biggest defenders. He just loves what she's doing and thinks it's all fantastic. Of course, no surprise that she is a big, unhinged defender of the President of the United States. And I did a bunch of snooping around, Pat, and I'm not finding a definitive statement. So Fox News announced that Jeanine Pirro's show would not be airing this past Saturday at 9 p.m., which is when it normally airs. They didn't say when she would be back to the network, which is sort of unclear in terms of whether that show is gone and someone else will be doing something at 9 on Saturdays, or whether she will be back but in a different role. I genuinely don't know what's going on at this point.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to find out. Specifically, she said that Ilhan Omar, because she's a Muslim and follows Sharia law, that means that she can't subscribe, I guess, to the Constitution because there's a conflict of interest there. The rant also had a bunch of other bigoted statements in there. But it was nothing, I think, above and beyond what she normally says on her show, and nothing out of place from what you see on Fox News on any given day. So it was a bit surprising to me for them to make this move. Again, we don't know if it's canceled or just suspended for now, but a bit surprising. And also the fact that the news came out like a week after she had that rant. So we'll see. We'll see if they keep the public
when
pressure.
I think back to the Tucker Carlson thing, Tucker Carlson's comments about women from years ago on another radio show, he refused to apologize and Fox News didn't do anything about it. Here, Jeanine Pirro made the comments on her show and Fox News did decide to do something about it. But in either case, I think your point is correct, Pat, which is that these are not outliers in terms of what these people espouse as views and values. This is why people watch them. I mean, Jeanine Pirro has had many similar rants about who's American and who's un-American or whatever. And the tinge of everything that she does on the show is the same. So I actually don't know why it was that this is what Fox News chose to suspend her over. But my suspicion is that this could very easily blow over and she could quietly return and it would just kind of be no big deal.
Maybe this will spark another road rage incident of hers where she gets caught driving at 119 miles per hour. That would be dangerous. I'm also worried, too, that we're going to have a lack of material to cover in upcoming shows because she provided us with so much material. We used to always cover her rants, and I got some enjoyment out of that.
Yeah, maybe an exaggeration to say we always covered them, but there were a few good ones, and I don't even remember what they are at this point, but there was one about, I mean, they've mostly been Trump-related, right?
Yeah, now come to think of it, maybe it was mostly forgettable material, but I think it's more about her style, the fact that she has that really odd delivery that makes you think that she's from another planet.
She has an extremely strange way of speaking. And for me, what is not appealing, but it makes it interesting to watch is the reckless abandon and completely unfettered confidence with which she says absolutely insane and disgusting things, as if obviously this is what everybody should believe. And how could anyone come to any other conclusion? Unique, I think, is the best word to apply to Jeanine Pirro. We'll see if she returns to the network or to her program. I'm not going to shed a tear one way or the other. Certainly won't be holding my breath. Russian President Vladimir Putin has signed a new law which will allow individuals to be punished and online media to be punished for spreading what Russian government officials are calling fake news. Who is this sounding like all of a sudden? As well as information which, quote, disrespects the state. And this is what authoritarians do, right? This is what Trump would love to do this. Trump has hinted at doing this. Putin has a system which makes it much easier to just do it. But it is yet another one of these examples where how can you not see the similarity between what Russia is now doing with a news that is so-called disrespectful to the state, compared to what Donald Trump has talked about doing and has hinted at doing and has suggested that he would like to do. This is the same stuff. This is why Trump is just so smitten with and taken by these authoritarians, because they're doing all the stuff that Trump would love to be doing. And we have to get him out of office before he comes up with ways to actually start doing the stuff. A few other specifics from the Moscow Times, for example. Online news outlets and users that spread fake news will face fines of up to 1.5 million rubles, which is about $23,000, for repeat offenses. Insulting state symbols and the authorities, including Putin, will carry a fine of up to 300,000 rubles and 15 days in jail for repeat offenses. As is the case with other Russian laws, the fines are calculated based on whether the offender is a citizen, an official, or a legal entity. More than 100 journalists and public figures, including human rights activist Zoya Zvetova and popular writer Lyudmila Ulitskaya, signed a petition opposing the law, which they labeled direct censorship. Is it going overboard, Pat, to say that this is the type of thing, if not exactly the thing, that Trump would like to do?
Well, I don't think that's going overboard. It's interesting how both Trump and the Russians are trying to co-opt the meaning of fake news. It's no longer false news deliberately intended to deceive people. Now it's just accurate news with which you disagree. So there's definitely some overlap on that front. And also, it's interesting how Trump was the beneficiary of fake news in the 2016 election, and now he rails against it. Similarly, the Russians were putting out fake news through troll farms, and yet now they turn around and say that they're supposed to be against it. It's just not believable.
I was on a panel at Politicon in October about fake news, and there were some left-wingers on the panel, there were some right-wingers on the panel, there was a reporter from the Boston Globe on the panel, and we were just talking about what is fake news. And David Brock from Media Matters at one point said, hey, let's stop pretending that, at least in the context of the 2016 election, fake news was balanced ideologically. Fake news during the 2016 election cycle was almost exclusively perpetuated by the right to try to damage the left. It's Hillary has Parkinson's. It's Obama's not going to leave the Oval Office. It's all this different stuff. There were no serious fake news stories about the right, period. And the audience, the crowd, was pretty mixed politically. And I remember that there were some women for Trump with cowboy hat versions of the MAGA hat, and pins and just outrageous clown makeup, and they looked completely outrageous, immediately started booing and criticizing David Brock's comment. And David Brock did a brilliant thing, which was to say, name a fake news story perpetuated by the left against the right. And they couldn't name one. And it was a really great moment in that panel. But yes, fake news has been completely co-opted and weaponized. The idea of fake news has been weaponized by the right, by the authoritarian right in the United States to some degree. We see what happens when you take it a step further in Russia with this new law where people can get fined or jailed for making negative comments about Putin or about the government. A quick fundraising note related not to the David Pakman Show, but the 2020 Democratic primary. So when Bernie Sanders announced his candidacy, he raised a ton of money on his first day. I believe that it was just under $6 million, $5.9 million in the first 24 hours after Bernie announced he's running in 2020. That bested Kamala Harris, who I think at that point was the top fundraiser in the first 24 hours of her campaign. Beto O'Rourke has now reportedly fundraised $6.1 million in his first 24 hours after announcing. This is a sign, Pat, that some are taking to mean that Beto is going to very quickly become the front runner. I think it's a bit premature to say that. I think that a more likely explanation would be that it's a combination of some people being excited about Beto O'Rourke, but also the fact that he so recently had an active donor list from his campaign against Ted Cruz, and that he was able to leverage more recent name recognition and a more active and fresh donor list to get them to donate to him right away. I don't think that it's a foregone conclusion that Beto now becomes the front runner because he outraised Bernie by $200,000 in the first day.
We also don't know the raw number of donors to Beto O'Rourke's campaign, whereas we do know that information with Bernie Sanders, and per usual with Bernie, I mean, it's mostly small dollar donations, $27 at a time. We don't know how many people have actually contributed to Beto O'Rourke, so it's hard to gauge the actual excitement level there. Apparently, we will know in a few weeks because an FEC filing will come out reporting it. But the fact that O'Rourke's campaign isn't being forthright about the number of donations, I think that's kind of telling. Now, when the FEC report does come out, this will be old news and people will maybe stop focusing on it because we'll be past the initial fundraising stages. But I think that is important to point out.
Beto O'Rourke not taking donations from corporations, not taking donations from super PACs, and that was his approach to the 2018 candidacy of, or rather 2018 campaign against incumbent Republican Senator from Texas, Ted Cruz. And Beto O'Rourke also raised a record-breaking $30 million in 2018. Now, it's important to understand that a lot of that was a very notable Senate race. People around the country were very interested in the possibility of unseating an incumbent Republican senator in a red state like Texas. So he had a lot of national donors that were not living in the state of Texas. It's anyone's game. I don't, here's where I kind of come away at this point. And you tell me if you agree or disagree, Pat. I don't think that at this point in time, March 19th of 2019, I don't think that looking at fundraising numbers tells us who is ultimately going to be the Democratic nominee. And I don't think looking at polling numbers tells us who is ultimately going to be the nominee. I think it's just too early to know.
We can only guess at this point, especially because there are so many candidates. I mean, when this is all said and done and everyone has declared, we may have 20 of them. So who knows? I mean, we can guess. Like, I think that Bernie Sanders is going to be in it until the end. And there's probably going to be an establishment candidate, too, in there. It could be Kamala Harris. It could be Joe Biden. It could be Beto O'Rourke. But at the end of the day, we're all just guessing. I think at this stage of the election, the last time around, on the Republican side, the favorite was Jeb Bush. So we all know how that went, and it did not go well.
Yeah, he ended up getting low on energy and just kind of petering out, as the low energy memers would like to say. Okay, let me throw out one question to our membership and our bonus show audience. Not who are you supporting? Okay, not who are you supporting in the 2020 Democratic primary, but who do you believe is ultimately going to be the nominee? And what's very interesting is that when there are polls done of who are you going to vote for, we see those polls all the time. Those are one thing. When people are asked, who do you think will win? The results are much more accurate with regard to who ultimately wins. People, regardless of who they plan to support, seem to be able to think, okay, here's who I want to see win, but here's who I think will actually win. So who do you believe will be the eventual Democratic nominee? Let me know. If it's someone who's not currently running, let me know. If it's someone who is currently running, also let me know. And we'll follow up on it later in the week.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.